Hey guys, Sean here. Welcome to the F1 word and to some Brazilian Grand Prix race reaction. How'd you like them apples? Is that a saying or have I just made that up? What a race. Those final few laps were absolutely insane. If you haven't watched it, you definitely need to. I bet you can't wait for the Channel 4 highlights tonight. Also, if you haven't watched it, spoilers everywhere in this stream, already giving away the results. I'm going to be joined by Dan in a moment to kind of go over this. If you are new to the channel, this isn't a review. Obviously, it is just us reacting to what we've just witnessed, which was absolutely insane. I am going to kick this off. I've been umming and ahhing about this, but I'm going to kick this off with the race result. It's entirely pointless because this is already wrong. Max Verstappen has won the Brazilian Grand Prix and will be keeping that victory, so congratulations to him. You are not drunk. You are not dreaming. Pierre Gasly did finish second and will keep that second place for Toro Rosso. Such emotional scenes at the end. Fantastic. And the fact, as we'll talk about in a minute, he managed to outdrag a Mercedes as well. Unbelievable. Well done to him. Lewis Hamilton crossed the line third. However, he did receive a 5-second time penalty because of the incident with Alex Albon, promoting Carlos Sainz to the podium. Number one, unfortunately, it was done after the podium, so Sainz won't get to stand on there. And number two, he is still, as far as I know, under investigation for opening DRS under double waved yellows. Now, McLaren think they're in the clear with it. Everything Sky have been saying and the stuff I've seen on Twitter is saying that Sainz should be okay. But at the moment, he could still lose that podium. If that happens, Kimi Räikkönen will end up third because he's fifth with, well, he'd be fourth with Giovinazzi fifth. Ricciardo moves up to sixth with Lewis Hamilton slotting into seventh place. Norris crossed the line eighth, Perez ninth, Kvyat 10th, Magnussen 11th, Russell 12th, Grosjean 13th, Albon 14th, Hulkenberg 15th, Kubica 16th. And your retirements list, Vettel, Leclerc, Stroll and Bottas. Like I say, I wouldn't pay too much attention to that, and it's going to be on screen as well, and I wouldn't pay too much attention to the results scrolling along the bottom because it is going to change. But absolutely mental, and it's still all going on with the stewards. The Ferrari boys are in there as well. I'm going to have to put some headphones in or I'm not going to hear Dan, am I? That's probably a very good idea, Sean, but I hope you all enjoyed that race. I am... I could be watching that one again. Good evening, Dan, mate. What did you reckon to that? That all went a bit mental, didn't it?
Good evening, mate. Good evening, chat. That was pretty good. I really enjoyed that one. And the first half of the race was okay. It was one of those Grand Prix where strategy was king, but that second half, oh my God, what a treat. And with 2 races to go, I think quite a few of us expected the championship, or the races at least, just to wind down just a little bit. But crikey, that was right up there with the best of the season. Absolutely loved it.
I mean, I was doing the watch along. I nearly didn't. I felt so dreadful before doing it, but I'm so glad I did because I felt bloody fantastic after that, mate. Incredible. Like I said, just a reaction, so we don't need to be too in depth with anything tonight. But I mean, first of all, let's start with Max Verstappen. We'll be fair to him. Really good drive. Great wheel-to-wheel racing with Lewis Hamilton, something we've been absolutely begging for so long now, seeing Verstappen and Hamilton wheel-to-wheel. Brilliant to see them doing that. It was aggressive, and you could actually tell, the championship was over because I do feel like 6 races ago with the title still on the line, Hamilton might have been a bit more cautious with some of that, but they were not afraid to properly fight it out, and a well-deserved win for Max.
Yeah, definitely. One of Max's best drives of the season. And I think what I enjoyed about this one is with modern Formula One, especially with the top teams, you might get one overtake between Hamilton and Verstappen, but the way strategy panned out, it seemed like they were constantly back and forth. And especially after that first pit stop, there was a good 5 or so laps there. I was right on the edge of my seat, those two going back and forth. And clearly, they're 2 of the best drivers on the grid. It's very rare we see that in Formula One. And a circuit like Brazil as well, difficult to overtake, but they were really putting on a show. And like I said a minute ago, that early phase of the race wasn't amazing, but those two were really keeping it alive. And Max, I think, definitely deserved the win today. Was definitely the better of the two. You could maybe say that Red Bull car was the best on pace, but he just didn't put a foot wrong today. And that's something that 12 months ago, arguably showing his... I was going to say insecurity then. That's not the word. Immaturity. That's the word I'm looking for. Insecurity, crikey. But yeah, definitely 12 months on, you can see how much he's evolved as a person. Crikey, one of those streams. But you know what I mean. Really good race today from Max.
I do. And by one of those streams, by the way, I will be keeping an eye on Twitter loads through this, waiting for breaking news. But I think, F1 Twitter have tweeted that Carlos Sainz has earned his first podium, so we'll go with that for now. But we'll keep an eye on it. We will keep an eye on it. I don't know what else to say about Max. I mean, driver of the day. Surprise, surprise. It's when I do my predictions for the preview, Dan, I always leave Verstappen as driver of the day 9 times out of 10 because it's always pretty much guaranteed to be. I think I changed it this week to Leclerc, and I think I've lost that point in my predictions now, so I'm not impressed, mate. I'm not impressed. But I can't say much about Max other than he was absolutely brilliant. He wasn't afraid to get his elbows out. Nothing on the line, I guess. Moves him into third in the Drivers' Championship. By the way, the championship tables are not on screen because just as I was going live, everything all changed, so I'm not going to put them up because it's pointless. But that moves him into third now. We've got a nice little fight between him and Leclerc in Abu Dhabi. And actually, to be fair to Max, a week ago, he was saying he didn't think he'd catch Leclerc, and now he's gone past him. So really impressed with Max today. You were talking about maturity there, and he's just growing and growing and growing. And he has his moments, but I think every driver does. I mean, Lewis Hamilton had one today. So every driver has their moments, but really impressed with him. But I've just, I'm rushing to get to it. Pierre Gasly second, mate. The watch along, I think I go a little bit mad, possibly swear way too much. I am so chuffed for that guy. He has had a roller coaster. I'm reluctant to say roller coaster because I know what chat will do, but he's had a roller coaster of a season. Red Bull started, picked up a little bit, struggled at times, and became the target, and I was quite critical of him, even though I am a big fan of Pierre Gasly's. Got dropped to Toro Rosso, and we thought, he's going to get kicked in the gut like Fiat did. It's going to knock him for 6. He hops in that Toro Rosso, starts delivering in the second half of the season, showing exactly why Red Bull picked him up in the first place and promoted him to the first team. And now he's got the podium. Toro Rosso's best result since Monza 2008, and he's kind of looked at Daniel Kvyat's podium in Germany and gone, anything you can do, mate, I can do better. I could not be happier for anybody today than I am for Pierre Gasly, genuinely.
Yeah, 100% agree. What an awesome drive from him as well. I think quite a few of the drivers today had really strong drives, but Pierre Gasly was one of those. He was ahead of the midfield for the majority of the race. In those early stages, he was closer to the top 6 than he was Kimi Räikkönen in that battle behind. So I was already starting to think, you know what, he's definitely in contention for driver of the day. And those closing stages, blimey, like you've just said there, buddy, that first half of the season, we were all just saying, Gasly, please get 6th, mate. Please get 6th. So to now get 2nd in a Toro Rosso, I think when that final safety car was coming out and Hamilton stopped, I think we were all thinking, please, don't bring in the safety car. Let him have a podium. And I think we all thought it had slipped away. So for him to get 2nd, even better. Of course, I was gutted for Alex. But the journey he's been on, and that weekend in Spa as well, like you say, it's been a crazy year for him. And to be able to just sign off the season like this, I know we still have one more race, and to also put him, I know the championship is a little bit funny because of the Sainz podium, but right up there in the fight for 6th, I did not expect that to happen. And for Toro Rosso now to jump up into 5th, that's a mega result for them. And to be honest with you, they totally deserved it this weekend. And Gasly, faultless race in my eyes.
We were talking on the watch song, actually. I was talking to chat and I said, Toro Rosso reckon they could still get 5th in the Constructors. What do you reckon? And we were all like, no. And then he goes and does that. I think they're only a point or 2 behind Renault now for 5th. That's going to hurt Renault if they get beaten by what was Minardi once upon a time in the Constructors' Championship. I mean, I'm so happy for him. And like you said right at the start of your point there, Dan, forget the podium for a second. His drive all afternoon was really solid. He was comfortably best of the rest. He kept it clean. He kept it calm. He drove brilliantly. And at the end of the day, and this is like one of my many one-liners that I come up with, you've got to be in the position to capitalise on that luck when it falls your way. He picked up the pieces, took 2nd place. Fantastic. And such emotional scenes as well. Between him and Max Verstappen. I can imagine probably Verstappen in private will be like, well, where was that 6 months ago, mate? Come on. But I think a lot of emotion there for him. Understandably, that team radio was very much, one of those I'm not crying, you are moments. I wasn't quite crying, to be fair. Lump in the throats, as Murray Walker would say. It was one of those, but absolutely so pleased for him. And I think it is as well. That's Gasly, but that could be Giovinazzi, that could be Magnussen, that could be Kubica. It's that underdog story, isn't it, that we all love, and it's the second time this season that we've got that. And I want to delete everything pre-France from this season. I really do.
Brilliant.
Just incredible. And there's a picture there on screen now. He out-dragged that. I thought when Hamilton on that last lap got up the inside of turn 12, or is that Glock as I call that corner, into turn 12, I thought he's going to get him. That Mercedes power will breeze past a Honda power Toro Rosso. Gasly out-dragged him to the line, 6/100ths ahead of Lewis as they went over the line. I mean, forget Gasly for a second. That's huge progress for Honda, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I'd just like to say, what a slap in the pace, a slap in the face for Fernando Alonso this weekend. A double Honda podium and a McLaren podium. Crikey, that that did put a smile on my face. Sorry, Fernando. But yeah, the work they have been able to do and the amount of, I suppose, backlash they had going into the season. I was one of those that wasn't particularly optimistic for Honda. People were expecting Red Bull to be in the fight with Renault and with McLaren for best of the rest. So to not only pick up 3 victories, but to get a 1-2 on the podium, that is insane. And for Renault power as well, for no Mercedes or Ferrari powers to be on the podium, that's even more bizarre. And a couple of years ago, if you'd have said that, I don't think anyone would have believed you. So I think it's a nice little touch that slowly, that the law of diminishing returns is slowly closing in on the engine gap. But like you say, the progress they've been able to do, the tough times they had with McLaren, and for McLaren as well, they didn't have a particular brilliant time over the last few years. It was just a nice podium to see in that kind of way.
Just anybody in chat will let me know. I'm sure they'll go and Wikipedia it for me, but I might be wrong. Is that the first time we haven't had Mercedes power on the podium in the turbo hybrid era? I'll let chat, because I can't think off the top of my head. I'm just trying to think. The only one that's sticking out to me is there was the Canadian Grand Prix, but I don't know if Mercedes power ended up there with the McLaren. No, it can't have been. No, it won't be. Ignore me. I was just trying to think when the last time was. It seems like forever since we've not had a Mercedes or Mercedes power on the podium. But a couple of stats for you, by the way, on Gasly, and actually Sainz as well. Pierre Gasly is the first French driver to finish on the podium at the Brazilian Grand Prix since Olivier Panis in 1997, and Carlos Sainz is the first Spaniard to finish on the Interlagos podium since Fernando Alonso in 2013. That's from Lights Out blog. Make sure you give them a follow. I love their stats. Nicky's brilliant. So yes, that's a good stat there. But Carlos Sainz, he gets that podium. It looks like he's going to be okay from what I've seen. Possibly. Everything I've read so far is that he closed the DRS before he got to the yellow. But some people tweeting now that it could be a long evening yet before we hear anything, because there's a lot of drivers to go through. So that entire result is pending. We don't know who else under investigation, but a number of drivers could be for that DRS infringement. But let's just talk. Forget investigations for a minute, Dan. Carlos Sainz on the podium for McLaren, finally on the podium to get to stand on it, but classified on the podium for the first time since Australia 2014. And you talk about kicking the gut and kicking the face or whatever, Dan. Beaten by 2 Honda power cars, though. You couldn't make this up, could you? This is so Formula One. But Carl, I'm really pleased for him. He's another one that drove brilliantly. And can I just say as well, and you can tell I've thoroughly enjoyed that race because I'm actually happy on the stream for a change. That's 20th to the podium. How Carlos Sainz is that drive, Dan?
It's just mad, isn't it? Just everything about that race was mad. But Sainz, as you say, crikey, what a drive from the Chile master once again this season. It was a brilliant drive, but so consistently this year, he's proved the doubters wrong. I mean, many people say that last season he went unnoticed, and I probably would agree with that at Renault. People just forget he was at Renault, and the year he's had is brilliant. So to top it off with a podium, I think a lot of people in chat will agree with me. He was probably the most deserved driver of a podium in 2019 who hadn't been on the podium, if that makes sense. He's been awesome. And the fact that he could go into Abu Dhabi and still be with a chance of getting in that top 6, he thoroughly deserves it. Another awesome drive in Austria. All those months ago, went from the pit lane it was, or P20 again, up to P5. And I really didn't expect him to do that again in 2019. But to get on the podium with a McLaren, that isn't a early 2000s McLaren. This is a midfield car McLaren. Awesome job. He really is coming into his own in 2019. And I'm so happy for him because a couple of years back at Toro Rosso, he had that hype, he had that promise. Last year, it went away a little bit, but he's smashing it this year, and he will go into next year, I believe, with a better car, and I don't think this will be the last podium of Carlos Sainz.
No, I could see, when we get to Hamilton, Vettel and co retiring or whatever from Formula One, I can see him being on people's radar. Because this season, I mean, he was good anyway, wasn't he? But this season, he's really selling himself, and I've got a video planned for over the winter with Carlos Sainz, because he is the driver that I am probably, aside from some of the rookies, the most impressed with this year. Based on my own, kind of like based on how I felt about him over last winter. He's probably made the biggest progress based on how harsh I was on him last December. Sorry, Carlos, but I'm really pleased for him, actually. And I just saw Jamal in chat there, who always comes up with great comments, by the way, in the watch-alongs. And in general, a lot of people do. But Jamal was saying there, and we didn't even get to see him on the podium, and we didn't see any of his comeback on TV. It is very fitting, as somebody else tweeted earlier, I think it was Matt from WTF1, saying that, of course, Carlos Sainz makes it to the podium, and we don't get to see it on TV. So we didn't get to see his comeback drive, and we didn't get to see his podium. That is very how... Carlos Sainz will be livid. After, he'll be like, for God's sake, just show me on TV for 5 minutes. But, again... A bit like Gasly, even if he doesn't get that podium, his drive from 20th to what would have been, 4th? It was on the official thing in the end, so that's still huge credit there. But also, yeah, okay, a bit of luck, but he's put himself in that position. He's done the one-stopper. I think he's the only driver, yes indeed, to make the one-stopper work. So huge credit for that as well. Everybody else was two-stopping, which was a big surprise for me, but so pleased for him. We've got to get straight onto it, though. I'm trying to get through this as quickly as I can, but also fanboy my backside off on Pierre Gasly and Carlos Sainz. But the incident that got him there, and probably Gasly, I had to get Gasly to the podium as well in that second place, Hamilton versus Albon. Hamilton went for the move up the inside into turn 9, I think it was, stuck it in there. Car wasn't quite alongside. I mean, he went for it. The door was there. I mean, the gap was there. Albon left the door wide open, didn't he? And Hamilton threw it in there. But little lock-up. I was watching the onboard with Karun just before I went live, Karun Chandok. Tiny lock-up on the right front from Hamilton. He's then just ended up hitting Albon into a spin. 5-second time penalty. I looked at the replays that we saw in the race, because it was an off-board, wasn't it? Kind of above... It was quite deceptive looking at the camera angle that we had, so it looked like Albon had turned in. But the camera angle on board with Lewis, it is a little bit more damning towards him. But the fact that Hamilton came out and said pretty much immediately after the race, that's my fault, it's a 5-second penalty. If he's gone into stewards and said that's my fault, that's a 5-second penalty. Game over. The on-board for me, I agree with the decision. The off-board looks very different though.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you, mate. It reminds me very much of Mexico when Verstappen said he hadn't stopped or hadn't lifted during the yellow flag. It was one of those incidents where if it hadn't have been a penalty, I'd have been like, yeah, that's fair enough. If it was a penalty, like it actually is this time round, I haven't seen the onboard shot of Lewis Hamilton, for full disclosure, but like you, if Hamilton's saying, look, I put my hands up, it was my mistake, the stewards can't ignore that. And to be honest with you, I thought that's quite rare of a Formula One driver to actually own up and say, yeah, that was my mistake. So I like that side of Lewis. I know the championship's over, and one extra podium for a driver like Lewis Hamilton isn't the biggest world of difference, but I thought it was a nice refresher on Formula One. But again, I haven't seen the onboard, so I can't definitively say, yes, that should be a podium. Hamilton's an awful driver. But at the same time, I wouldn't say that anyway, because I don't want to get shot. But from the offboard shots, Albon did leave the door open, but it is one of those corners where naturally, if you take the race in line, you do go heavily to the left-hand side, sweep back to the right-hand side. So he was pretty much on the race in line. So it was just one of those incidents for me. If it was a racing incident, it would have upset me that Sainz wouldn't be on the podium. But at the same time, I can understand why they gave a penalty.
Gutted for Albon. It was quite a weird one, actually, in the watch-along, because he kind of... Albon spins, and I'm going, no, Alex. And then I see Gasly, I'm like, Gasly's second! I was like, I don't know what to do. I was like, how does Crofty do this? But yeah, I'm gutted for Albon, but it's very hard to get that across because I'm so hyped for Pierre and Carlos. I think Albon drove well all afternoon, kept himself in contention, again, was there to pick up the pieces when other things fell his way. We'll talk about them too in a minute. We're talking about there if you saw the race. But it was when he got kind of after that first safety car and he got in the mix with Hamilton and Vettel, he did what we kind of have been seeing since he moved to Red Bull. Not afraid to get his elbows out. He doesn't care whether you're Lewis Hamilton or George Russell, or if you're Sebastian Vettel or Antonio Giovinazzi. He's coming through. He's going to fight you hard if you try and overtake. And that is nothing against Gasly, really, but that is exactly what Red Bull want from their second driver, someone who's aggressive. That's something Gasly wasn't doing in that first 10 races or 11 races he was at Red Bull. So I think, although very unlucky today with that incident, I do think Alexander Albon has kind of covered himself in glory again today, because he's shown that, yep, I can boss the midfield, I can pick up those 6th places or the equivalent if others have retired, and now I've shown you I can go toe-to-toe with a 6-time world champion. So he's ticking all the boxes, even if the guy that's fighting him for that seat long-term did end up second. So gutted for him, but I think there are a lot of positives to take away from today for Albon.
Yeah, and halfway through the race, I don't usually find myself saying this, but Martin Brundle said something, and I thought, you know what, Brundle, that's quite good. He said about how, yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of Brundle, sorry. There's a few dislikes, mate, apologies. But halfway through the race, he was saying, oh, Alex Albon, he's really good in the opening stages, then has that mid-race lull, and he was P6, which is a customary. Alex Albon is always in P6, working his way back up. But he was sat behind Bottas, and there was this kind of bit where he was in the DRS and he was having a bit of a sniff. And then that mid part of the race was pretty much, I don't want to say nowhere, but he was definitely 6th place. And like you say, when push came to shove, that safety car came out and he really needed to get his elbows out. He did. And that is, as you just said, mate, something Gasly didn't do. And that fight Albon had with Sebastian Vettel into turn 1 was awesome. Yes, there was respect there. There was just enough room, but you could tell he really wanted it. And that's something that not all drivers have. They don't have that fire. It's something Daniel Ricciardo, we all loved him doing, was making those overtakes. Gasly don't get me wrong. He got where he was today by being cautious, by making sure he didn't get in an incident and crash in. But on the flip side, that doesn't always work. And for Albon, yes, he had that incident with Hamilton, and maybe he could have left him a little bit more room. However, he did drive a brilliant race. And you know what? Like you, mate, I'm gutted for him. I wanted him to get that first podium, but it will come. I think it's only his maybe 8th race for Red Bull. And when you think of it about that way, another drive where you think, yeah, it makes sense why they're keeping him in that car. But like you say, Gasly with that podium today, it's going to be a brilliant fight over next season to who gets it for 2021. But both of them proving that they deserve a seat in Formula One. And for a driver that was potentially going to Formula E to even be within a sniff of a Formula One podium, that's a really brilliant turnaround for him. So gutted, but again, showing his promise, showing his potential.
Yeah, 12 months ago, he was on his way to Formula E and people were laughing at the prospect of him ending up there. Is the way there. But yeah, I don't know what to say about Albon. I think I do find it quite amusing without taking shots at other fans, but I do find it amusing that there are some people out there who think that he's a bit of a fraud. He's once again proved that he's not. I just saw a tweet from, a comment from Jonty, and I'm sorry if I've lost this, mate. I've had to refresh the thing. There it is. Update, 6 cars under investigation for DRS. Sainz being the highest place and Kimi is not investigated, so that's the only question left. All the points below 4th could change, though. So Kimi could stand up on the podium, but we'll keep an eye on that over on Twitter. And other penalties as well. I believe the stewards are still talking to the Ferrari boys, or they were last time. So I think we should probably talk about the Ferrari boys. I mean, how unnecessary was that? I don't want to kick off and start swearing. How unnecessary was that, Dan? I mean, Leclerc gets the move done in turn 1 in a great move, by the way, really aggressive against his teammate, but a good move. Vettel has every right, of course, to come back at him as they're racing for position. He goes to the outside, and you look at the off-board, you look at the on-board, Vettel makes the slightest of moves to the left. There is tiny contact between the two of them. It punctures Leclerc's front right and smashes off the whole wheel. Vettel ends up with a puncture left rear. They both retire. Completely unnecessary, absolutely ridiculous, and for me, 100% Sebastian Vettel's fault. Digest that, Dan.
I just find this so strange. I think this is one of the strangest crashes in 2019 because the damage that Leclerc had, you'd have thought a combine harvester had gone into the side of him. But like you say, the touch was so tiny. Usually, cars would do that on the opening lap. They do that during the Grand Prix and get away with nothing. I mean, Ricciardo and Magnussen, their incident, both of them went on like nothing had ever happened by the end of the Grand Prix. I, I would say, I think, like you, if you're going to put the blame at anyone's door, it is Sebastian Vettel because he did do that slight move. But I will say, I think it was just a very slight move. I really do believe it's a racing incident. I mean, I imagine you would as well. Maybe I'll let you answer that in a second. But it was the tiniest little move. But the key thing is, it wasn't necessary. Leclerc was on the better tyres. He'd just overtaken in that awesome move through turn one. Was Vettel going to be able to get, if he even did overtake him, was he then going to be able to make a gap? Was he then going to be able to take the fight to Verstappen and Hamilton? Probably not likely. So was it a little bit silly from Sebastian Vettel? Probably in the long run if it had paid off. So yeah, I think the word you used there, buddy, unnecessary, describes it perfectly because it was just a minor tap, but the world of difference. And for me, that's put both drivers out of contention for third in the championship. There's quite a sizable gap now between Leclerc and Verstappen. And I'm not too sure if Vettel can get it. I think you said earlier he can't. So that's a big blow for them. And on a weekend where the fight now in the championship is down to who's going to get that third place, that's not what Ferrari needed. And I think they are so ready for 2019 to end.
I've got to say, I'll be completely honest, I don't know what the championship standings are. I did the tables and everything ready for this, and then I was like, well, they're going to change, and then everything did change, and F1 haven't even bothered updating the website yet, so they're not even sure what's going on, so I'm not sure. I'll do my thingy tomorrow and we'll see, but a few people in chat there, Newt Dukin was saying it too, surprised by how much damage there was, considering how little contact, but my argument is, number one, Vettel does not have to make that move to the left. There is, it's tight, but there's enough space there for him, and it is the slightest of moves. Yeah, Leclerc could have come across, but he didn't need to. He's defending his position. But why are Ferrari not? Tinfoil hats on. If that role's reversed and Vettel's on the fresher tyres, are Ferrari telling Leclerc to get out of the way and let Vettel attack those ahead? Do you see what I'm getting at? Written in contracts and things like that. Why are Ferrari not saying to Vettel, let him go, he's on the fresh tyres, he's quicker, he can chase down, we might be able to win this, or at least get a podium out of this. Why are they not thinking like that? Whether it's because the championships are wrapped up and there's no point, I don't know, but I'm very surprised for a team that aren't afraid to pull rank when they need to, that they've not done that. But it's just an unnecessary one, completely unnecessary. I was going to say there's no reason, but that's what unnecessary tends to mean. So, yeah, but I'm reluctant to call it a racing incident. I'll be honest, because, and this is coming from somebody who defends Vettel way too much, by the way. I'm fully aware of that. But I'm reluctant to call it a racing incident because he doesn't have to make that move to the left. And it is the slightest move. And it reminded me, and others have made the comparison, it reminded me of Turkey 2010 with Mark Webber.
That's a good point.
It's not quite as dramatic, and it wasn't as big of an impact or as big of a movement, but there's just enough there. Now, whether Vettel's trying to move to avoid something, I'm trying to give him something here. I'm trying to help Sev out a little bit, but I think a lot of people have looked at that and gone, look, it was stupid. It was minor contact. Without the damage, no one's even batting an eyelid at that. It's the damage that surprised me more than anything. It really is. I'm going to keep saying that, and that'll come up loads in my review or whatever I do later in the week. But when I saw the contact in the watch long, I was like, oh, they've touched. And then you say, hang on, that wheel's hanging off on Leclerc. Has he got a puncture? And you go, oh my God, Vettel's got a puncture. And you're trying to work out how such tiny contact can result in such big damage. But then this is, the cars are flat out at that point, coming towards a break. The stresses on the car must be insane at that point. So I guess tiny taps can do that in Formula One. We've seen, little front wing end plates slicing tyres, haven't we, so many times. So I put the blame at Vettel's door for that. I do. I can't. We've not. I want to see the Vettel on board. I've seen the Leclerc on board. He doesn't make any movement to the right. It's Vettel's car that moves, and that's key for me. But I might wait to see the Vettels on board. But at the moment, from what I've seen, I put that at Vettel's door. But Mattia Binotto, I love how he comes out, and he's so open and honest with the media about how he did. Arriva Bene and previous Ferrari team principals would have been like, oh, we'll talk about it behind closed doors. Binotto's like, this is unacceptable. We can't have this happening. We will talk. We're going to get the drivers together. We're going to do this. And I like that about him. I like how he's more approachable, isn't he, from the press side of view. So I'm hoping we get some news from that. I have a feeling we'll get to Abu Dhabi or a couple of days' time and we're going to hear Vettel go, yeah, it was my fault. I'm so sorry. It's all over. And they'll just it's all fine. Don't worry about it. Don't worry. But I want to make this final point on this, Dan. And you can tell me what you think. I'm sure chat will get involved as well. This has been bubbling for a while now. And it's a surprise it's taken this long for them to have a bit of a race-ending contact for that to happen. We've seen team orders. We had all the falling out in Russia, messing about with things like that. They've come close on track before. Comments have been made. It's felt like it's been bubbling under the surface, and now it's just gone bang. And of course, your media like Sky and that are all now like, oh, how's the relationship? 7 minutes after the race has finished, like they've even spoken to each other yet. But I think no great surprise this has happened, and it's making next season interesting, that's for sure.
It certainly is. I mean, 2019 for the entirety of that Ferrari team has been such a whirlwind of change. Not only have they scrapped the number one driver, number two driver kind of ethos in the team, they've brought in Binotto, and it just seems to be, it's not quite gelled for them just yet. I think back to the very first race of the season, and there was all those squabbles between Leclerc and Vettel about strategy, and for those first 5 or 6 races, I think quite a few of the arguments within the Formula One world were, should Ferrari favour Vettel? Should they favour Leclerc? And it's been that wishy-washy kind of vibe between the two drivers. Maybe Vettel will be the number one. Maybe Leclerc will be number one. That indecisiveness they've had, that's really just not been brilliant for them in 2019. So yeah, next year going forward, will they just say, look, Leclerc's the young gun. He's the one who's staying here long term. We want to really back him this season. But then Vettel is a 4-time world champion for a reason. And I think since Monza, he's actually had a really strong end to the season, except today's incident. And the US obviously didn't last very long. But I think he's really bounced back. And it's just finding that nice sweet spot for Seb. But is that too much of a risk for Ferrari? I don't know. So the aftermath of this, I suppose the response from Sebastian in Abu Dhabi, which I imagine would be a circuit that suits Ferrari, that's really going to dictate how the winter goes for the team, how they even set up the car. There was all that debate at the beginning of the year that the car wasn't to Sebastian's liking. So they just need to iron out those little issues that, okay, on their own seem very insignificant, but now we're at the end of 2019. They have the most pole positions, and yet their wins are nowhere compared to the amount of poles, and something needs to change. I'm not too sure what needs to change, but yeah, really looking forward to see what they do next year, because it's going to be fun. It's going to be interesting for the viewers.
Still no word, by the way, on Carlos Sainz, but according to Twitter folk, neither Alfa Romeo are under investigation. There's no confirmation as to who the other drivers are, but neither Alfa. So if Sainz was slapped with a penalty, Raikkonen would be on the podium and Giovinazzi would probably end up P4. It's quite a day for people that have signed contracts anyway, Dan, to be honest. Gasly's second, staying at Toro Rosso. Giovinazzi 6th, he's staying at Alfa. Fiat picked up 10th place. He's staying at Toro Rosso. Not so much for Albon, but he was looking good prior to that incident. But yeah, what do you reckon, chap? Who do you blame for the Vettel-Leclerc incident? I'm not going to be able to read any out, I'll be honest, because it's absolutely going to fly, so that I can't even attempt to. But if you think it was Vettel, pop Vettel in the chat. If you think it's Leclerc, do pop Leclerc. And it gives me time to say, if you are new to the channel, by the way, thank you very much. 1,800 tuning in. Best we've had for a race reaction for a while, actually. It just shows how good that last few laps were. Some people say Ferrari in chat, by the way. Good call. But thank you very much for tuning in. Great to have you with us, and do subscribe if you're new. Lots of content coming up as well. There's a link to another channel as well in the description. That's all I'm saying. Feel free to go and subscribe to that one as well. But yes, where should we go next, Dan? Who have we talked about? We've done I'll tell you one thing we do need to talk about, Kubica and Verstappen in the pits. I meant to do that under Verstappen, actually. I've just spotted it on Twitter. penalty for Verstappen. That's a penalty, not for Verstappen, sorry,
Oh.
Kubica. It's penalty all day long, isn't it, Dan? Really, he's been released right in front of the leader, cost him time, could have cost him the race. Second year in a row, a backmarker might have screwed him over. But anyway, I can't argue with that on Kubica. So that's a penalty, isn't it?
Yeah, and I feel Williams let him go because most drivers, when they're at the end of the pit lane, just sort of cut the corner kind of thing.
Yeah.
And Kubica, I mean, fair play to him, was trying to sort of move over to the line because the team let him go. I can understand why he didn't think anyone was there, but yeah, that was a silly move. Probably the most interesting thing Williams have done this year. Sorry, Williams fans. Although Russell at the moment in 12th, so potentially could sniff a point if there's a few penalties. There you go, Williams fans. I'll cheer you up a little bit. But yeah, bit of a rookie move from Williams, that one. And considering it could have cost Verstappen the race win, not brilliant from them.
No, not much. What I would say on Williams, actually, is a nice picture there as well to show it. It was great to see them having a little scrap as well at one point during that race. We don't see a lot of Williams, do we? So it was nice. Maybe they did. That's what they did it for, TV time. Let's release Kubica, get the sponsors on telly, and then they'll watch him race. But good scrap between them. Russell actually finished quite a way ahead of Kubica, considering they were so close on track at one point. I think Kubica pitted out four times, so that's probably why. But yeah, I enjoyed that one. I enjoy watching those two fight. But you're right, Russell could yet end up in the points if we see a few penalties in there. So watch this space. I've got to be honest, and this is nothing against George Russell, but I kind of don't want him to.
Okay.
Yeah.
Explain.
As much as I love seeing every driver score points, Kubica's comeback has not been particularly brilliant, and I really wish he'd have been in a better car, so we could have seen what he's really got. But I kind of like the fact that he's in what is probably his final F1 season as a race driver. He's picked up that point for Williams, and it feels quite fitting to the Kubica story that he comes back after so long away, after surviving that horrific crash. Comes back, is struggling all season, but still manages to deliver that point when he needs to. And I just like that story. It's nothing against Russell. It's total fantasy land. I know that, but I like stories like that. So that's why, Dan. It's really weird, I know.
Fair play.
Yeah,
Fair play.
I think we've got some breaking news coming in, though, mate. Just bear with me over on the old Twitter. I think, looking for my... after the... Austria incident, let's put it that way, I always look for my reliable Twitter feeds now. If you weren't with us for that stream, I believed that fake one that was going around, and I read it out on stream, got really angry, and it turned out it was fake. No further action on Vettel and Leclerc, neither driver predominantly to blame, even though Vettel was predominantly to blame. But anyway, Sainz is still under investigation. That was 51 minutes ago, though. So that's a relief for Vettel that he's not been found predominantly to blame, because I think a couple more penalty points would have put him on the brink of a race ban for next year, because I don't think the points come off till May or June next year. So I think that he can breathe a sigh of relief with that one. But maybe the stewards have just looked at it and gone, do you know what? A little bit too close to call. Ferrari, you sort them out. I wouldn't be surprised because, but it was that chaos, of course, that caused a safety car. But anyway, got to talk about Alfa, because we could yet see them on the podium. But Kimi Raikkonen P5, Giovinazzi P6, great drive from both of them. I'm really chuffed. They've had a really difficult time of late as well, haven't they? So it's nice to see them picking up some hefty points, actually, because it's fourth for Raikkonen and fifth for Giovinazzi now, isn't it, with Hamilton's penalty? So 22 points. Yeah, 22 points for Alfa today. I didn't see a lot of them, I've got to be honest, but I never see out of Kimi. Everyone talks about Carlos Sainz. I never see anything of Kimi Raikkonen. Every single time I do these streams, I'm like, Kimi Raikkonen, P7, what? How did he get there? So, really pleased for them. Also, Daniel Ricciardo had an odd race and somehow still ended up in what has turned out to be P6. Had that contact with Magnussen, he got a penalty for, pitted a couple of times as well, including that early stop. Still ends up 7th. I mean, he is, I'm going to say it, Noah and Jamie, who we've had on streams before, will hate me for this. He's kind of carrying that team at the minute, isn't he?
Ooh, big statement. he is. Although I do think Hulkenberg's going under the radar a little bit. I mean, results like Monza, where Ricciardo got fourth and Hulkenberg's right behind him, but because Ricciardo got fourth, that fifth place doesn't look quite as good. But Ricciardo, I think, whereas at the beginning of the year, it was Hulkenberg was maybe one weekend higher up in quali, then Ricciardo, and it was back and forth. Yeah, you're right. Second half of the year, Ricciardo seems to be consistently the better of the two. But when you consider probably the wage difference between them, that's kind of why he's there, is to be that number one driver. So yeah, Hulkenberg definitely not one of his best races. And I just like to quickly say that's Raikkonen's first points since Hungary, since the summer break.
Really?
And I
No.
find that absolutely, yeah, it is absolutely mad. He's been on such a drought, but like you say, he's just sort of nowhere for the entirety of 2019. But you usually just think, oh, it's Raikkonen, yeah. But this weekend, he was doing a really classic Kimi Raikkonen job, and I don't think he will get a penalty. I don't think Sainz. I don't think he will get a podium. I don't think Sainz will get the penalty. But even then, that's a big chunk of points. And for the Constructors' Championship, they were a little bit worried about Haas. They're fine now. And Giovinazzi, blimey, his points tally has gone right up. And now, sadly, he's in front of Romain Grosjean. So, yeah, I'll leave that there.
I'll just sit here and smirk. Because that must be really awkward for you, because you really quite like Giovinazzi as well. So you kind of like, yeah, you git. You're going to get this a lot. Some more breaking news. Jenny Gow from the BBC. Hulkenberg gets a 5-second time penalty for overtaking before the restart. 1 penalty points imposed, total of 1 in the 12-month period. That drops him from 15th to probably 15th, to be honest. I don't think he's going to fall behind Kubica. So penalty there for Hulkenberg. That's confirmed. I think Sainz is going to, from what I've read and what I've seen, I think Sainz is absolutely going to be fine. I agree, Dan. But it's a weird one today, McLaren, because Sainz has ended up with the podium, Norris P8, but neither of them appeared to show the race pace we've seen of late from McLaren. And I thought they were going to be quicker in the race, but it's really hard to be critical of their race pace when they finished 3rd and 8th. But I hope you get what I mean. I thought with them sort of out of position, we'd see them coming through the field really quickly, and they'd be sort of 7th and 8th pretty swiftly as well, and best of the rest, and fighting with Gasly. But that never really happened. And I know it's really difficult to do this, but if McLaren had the race pace that we've seen in recent races, they could well have ended up 2nd and 3rd today. So I was quite disappointed with their pace. But again, it's very hard to be critical when they have just got their podium for their first podium since 2014.
Yeah, and to see neither car in Q3, I was already thinking, oh, that's quite a surprise. And then for a good chunk of the race, they were stuck behind Romain Grosjean, which of course, I was fine with. I didn't mind that whatsoever. But considering where the pace of the Haas has been for the last 5 or 6 races and the pace of the McLaren, that was a weird thing to see. And yeah, it's just a strange one because they'd picked up a really big chunk of points. Sainz is right back in it now for that 6th overall in the championship. Norris, a good chunk of points for him in that battle in the midfield. So the result looks brilliant on paper, and they'll come away from this weekend with one of their best races of the year. But like you say, when actually you look at it a little bit deeper and in a little bit more detail, it wasn't brilliant for them. And they kind of needed that end of race carnage to really just promote their race. But hey, you say it all the time, buddy. You've got to be in those positions to pick up the points. And that's exactly what they did. And to be able to pick up a podium after a year where I don't think many of us were expecting them to be 4th or comfortably 4th, they deserve it. It's just a weird one that it's on this weekend where the car probably wasn't best of the rest.
When this happened, okay, because I've just spotted him on the result there, and I completely forgot about him. But when this happened, I thought this was going to be the big talking point of the race, and that's Valtteri Bottas, a Mercedes mechanical failure which caused him to retire. I thought that was going to be the big story of the day, but it turns out it was going to be another one of those races where I was sat in a race reaction going, well, at least we got some strategy intrigue. That's how it felt. That's what I thought halfway through. I was like, oh my God. It's great. I love the strategy side of things, but there are a lot of people that are going to come out and go, oh, that was boring because it was all about strategy. But I thought, oh, great, here we go. I have to try and defend the sport again. And then Bottas pulls over and you're like, well, at least we've got that to talk about. And then his car blew up and then the race just blew up, didn't it, basically? And really surprised to see Bottas retiring with a mechanical issue because it is so rare to see Mercedes going through that. But what was the biggest surprise for me with Bottas today was his lack of pace versus those ahead. I know he had some issues after qualifying. I think, again, don't quote me, but I think he said after qualifying it was to do with setup. They'd gone the wrong way. But really surprised by how off the pace he was versus his teammates. I think he was a pit stop behind pretty swiftly in that race. But he was a long way off the pace of those leaders, but he was kind of on his own, wasn't he, as well? He wasn't really under threat from anyone. Albon did early doors, but nothing really after that. So a little bit disappointed, but it's a track that isn't, even though they've won here every year except, well, this year now, but also 2017, so most of them since 2014, it's not a track I instantly look at and go, that's a Mercedes track, whether that's the altitude or whatever. So I was just surprised to see that lack of pace, but kind of gutted for Bottas, I've got to be honest, Dan, because I tried to say this in the race watch along and I didn't really get the point across, and I don't think I will now because I'm live, and I never do when I'm live. I can never get the point across I want to make without upsetting somebody, but he has had an extremely good second half of the season versus his previous seasons. I won't get as carried away as others about it being this epic end to the season like Rosberg had in 2015, but it's been a very, compared to say last year and the year before, he's had a much better second half of the season, and I was kind of hoping he'd be able to build on that and maybe kind of keep the momentum going, but it didn't really. I mean, obviously mechanical failure, not his fault, but I don't really know what to say. I was just surprised by his lack of pace for the fifth time, mate.
No, yeah, I agree. I was definitely in the camp thinking that, oh, Hamilton's won the championship now. I wonder if that will really push Bottas on. He's got the momentum after the US, a circuit where Hamilton usually is one of the best, is supreme, and he got the better of him, a six-time world champion. So I was thinking that, you know what, he's going to get up, he's going to have his porridge, and he's going to go for it. But yeah, like you say, the entire weekend, he just didn't really seem to be on it. And whether that's down to the fact he knows he's got second and he doesn't need to push, he doesn't need to be aggressive, he can just chill out if he really wants for these final two Grand Prix. But I don't know, I expected to be a little bit more fire in Valtteri. And Leclerc very easily came back into that top six after working his way through the field in those early stages. And I thought Bottas would put up a bit more resistance, to be totally honest with you. So when he pulled over, I don't think I was upset for him quite like you were, because I was almost thinking, well, he's second, it's fine. But I think perhaps I'm a little bit disappointed with how his weekend went. I thought he would be there with Hamilton. I thought these last two races were a chance to really prove there's nothing to lose. Just go for it. If you crash, you crash. But if you win, you can really build momentum for next season. So, yeah, I expected more from Valtteri this weekend. And when he did pull over, at first, I've got to be fully honest with you, when he pulled over and he found the gap in the barriers, I could hear the global sigh, thinking, no safety car. Because we really needed the safety car at that time. And unfortunately, I don't know whether it was slightly on a hill and they had to push the car. They had to get the crane out. And luckily, there was a safety car and the race unfolded like it did. But yeah, not one of Valtteri's best weekends. However, Abu Dhabi is a circuit he quite likes, so maybe that'll redeem him. But I thought this Valtteri of 2017-18, where one weekend he's on it, one weekend he's not, I thought that had gone. So I'm a little bit disappointed to see that come back this weekend.
Breaking news. Jenny Gao has just tweeted, 25-second penalty for Carlos. And I'm joking. Dan nearly pooed himself. No penalty for Carlos Sainz. He is confirmed as third place finisher. Delighted for him and McLaren. How far that team have come. If you've just switched off in rage or anybody's just thrown anything at a screen because I said that, I'm sorry. No penalty for Carlos Sainz. Not a 25 one. Nothing at all for Carlos. He's kept his podium. Well done to him. First for McLaren since 2014, as I've been saying, which was a double actually in the end, of course. Actually, yeah, last time, I know obviously Kevin Magnussen was second, but last time McLaren were third on the podium, Jenson Button was promoted post-race, so that's kind of fitting as well, Dan, that Sainz goes third on the podium and he's promoted post-race. Sorry, the safety car, apparently the heart sank. I'm sorry, I'm a git. But yeah, great news. Sainz keeps his podium. I've still got that result on screen. It's entirely pointless because it's completely wrong now, but there you go. Who else do we need to talk about, Dan? I want to talk about the Magnussen-Ricciardo incident. I called that in the race. Ricciardo penalty. He's just locked up a little bit, hasn't he, and run into... The space was there. It's not often K-Mag leaves your space, but I think he left enough there for Ricciardo, and I think that's the right decision on the penalty there. Kind of destroyed K-Mag's day, though, didn't it? And Haas.
Yeah, I agree with you. The fact that K-Mag spun, if it was just a slight tap and maybe a little wiggle, Ricciardo got the place, maybe he'd have got away with it. But the fact it really did ruin Kevin's afternoon, I can't really argue with the penalty.
What happened to Haas, Dan? I'm going to do some super chats in a minute, but what happened to Haas? Because we got qualifying, they're all happy and smiling, and you're going, oh my God, Haas can smile again. They do smile. Gunther Steiner seemed pleased. The drivers were happy. I mean, K-Mag as happy as he's ever going to be, of course. And then the race, I think I expected him to drop off, but Grosjean I think he had a power unit problem or a power issue at one point, but he just seemed to plummet and couldn't get the heat into his tyres. Surprise, surprise, in a Haas. And then Magnussen obviously wiped out by Ricciardo. Did recover to 11th, to be fair to him, but I'm so pleased for Gasly. I'm so pleased for Sainz. It's great for Alfa. It really is. It's good that Racing Point have got a couple of points with Perez again, because that's what Perez does. But if there was one team I could pick today to have a really good result, it's Haas and Kevin Magnussen. And I guess Romain Grosjean. But I just think if any team could just do with that boost at the minute, it's them.
I will keep this short because I feel they shot themselves in the foot today. I'm so disappointed with them, and their Achilles heel still is strategy. They never get it right. They always try and go for the overcut, and 99 times out of 100, it doesn't work. And they went for it again with Grosjean, who was happily in the points in the top 10. When they were trying to go for a one-stop, and I understand the bravery, but when that safety car came out, Grosjean had a mighty gap behind him. Could have come in, been on fresh tyres. Even Brundle and Crofty said Grosjean's got a prime opportunity here to get in the points, be on the soft tyres, just be on a new set of tyres and be in the mix. But they didn't. And he was on tyres that were half the Grand Prix old. Everyone else had new tyres. And I was a little bit angry and thought, maybe he could hold on. But like you say, buddy, watching him plummet from 7th to 17th in 2 laps broke my heart. And this is one of those weekends where a team like a Haas, like a Racing Point, just need to take a gamble. But when Haas, this isn't the first time they've done these weird strategies and it just hasn't paid off. And I just feel that just would have played it safe. They need points desperately. They've had 1 point finish between the two cars since the summer break. They need points. They need something. And it's another kick in the teeth, another angry Dan at the end of a Grand Prix. And this was a great opportunity for them. Don't get me wrong. I don't think both drivers did anything wrong this weekend. That car is an absolute dog. But finally it was working. Finally there was a chance and they let it go. Another team that cannot wait for this year to end.
I mean, I will say, I know it was because of the safety car, but in fairness to Haas, Magnussen was 0.8 off a point and Grosjean was only another 1.45 seconds further back. So they weren't a million. I know it was because of the safety car. I mean, Kubica was 74 seconds off a point. How does that work? Anyway, no, that's not right. But anyway, Hulkenberg down to 15th was only 3.1 off picking up a point. So I know there were reasons why, but I don't think they were too far off in the end. Who knows? A couple of penalties in there and we might see Magnussen and Grosjean in the points.
Don't tease me. Don't you dare tease me.
But yeah, I don't think there's too much more to come from. There are still apparently drivers under investigation, but yeah, they're all tweeting now. So that's confirmed. Sainz has got his podium. Sainz has tweeted it as well. Fantastic news for him. Really pleased. And that's 2 new podiums today with Gasly and Sainz, which is nice to see. I'm going to do my super chats now because I've had quite a few tonight. So thank you very much, everyone, for your contributions this evening. Massively appreciated. Ed Butler says, I'm a massive fan of McLaren and this is a dream. So you must be absolutely chuffed with that. That's such a British phrase, chuffed. You must be really happy with that one, mate. So congratulations to you McLaren fans out there. Suffering Addict, thank you for your contribution. Says, race reaction streams, the best way to enjoy the post-race time, better than any TV coverage. Also, the Ferrari drivers... yeah, also, screw the Ferrari drivers, especially Leclerc. Suffering Addicts made his mind up, but thank you very much for those nice words there. I do enjoy these when we get a good race. Not so easy when it's a bit dull, I'll be honest. Is it Sujith says, gutted as a Ferrari fan, but so happy for Gasly, Kimi and Gio. Alfa needed a good day today. Albon will grow to be a better driver next year. I think he absolutely will. I think this year's about finding his feet at Red Bull these last few races, and then he'll pick up tomorrow. So thank you for your contribution. And Aquila, bear with me a sec. I just need to go and click yours on a different screen. 3 Red Bull drivers on the podium again, if you include Sainz. Of course, yeah. Toro Rosso gets 2 podiums in a season, and Merck has a mechanical. Ferrari implodes in spectacular fashion. Sainz driver of the day. Alfa with an amazing point haul. What a race. You can do the race reaction next time, mate, because that was a pretty nice way to wrap things up, if you like, for opinions. But yeah, I didn't even think about that. Verstappen, Gasly, Sainz, all current or former Red Bull boys, Dan. So that programme, there are downsides to it. Drivers getting booted out, but when they find the drivers, they certainly deliver for them.
Yeah, I saw a really cool statistic as well. I can't credit whoever it was. I'm apologies. But someone said what was really bizarre, in 2019, both Toro Rosso cars have had a podium, but only one Red Bull car.
Yeah.
Which I quite like that one. But yeah, a couple of months ago when Gasly was being dropped and Albon was coming in, there was lots of talk whether the Red Bull Junior program had really dried up and they can't find talent. But it's really coming good at the end of 2019. And I still think they're kicking themselves that they didn't keep Carlos Sainz. But yeah, Gasly on the podium, Albon very easily could have. It's not too bad for them.
Both getting more podiums more quickly than Hulkenberg, of course. Anyway, that's my. I said at the start, Dan, of the watch I did. If Hulkenberg's going to score a podium in Formula One, it's going to happen in Brazil because it's the most likely based on the fact that we could get anything. Ugh. Yeah. Once again, a crazy race, Hulkenberg nowhere, and it's like, come on, man. Could you imagine F1 Twitter if he'd have actually landed on the podium today, or whatever, landed on the podium? Anyway, he doesn't fly, does he? There we go. So fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. Sainz and McLaren are making their way to the podium with the 3rd place trophy, according to Steckleton. Thank you very much. So they are going to let him stand on the podium, bless him. So once again, the McLaren standing on the podium on the Brazil, only this time they've actually earned it rather than just going up there for a laugh. I'm going to ask you a question in a bit, Dan, because I do want to put it to you, but I am going to... Is there anything I've missed? Stroll got a puncture, which broke his suspension, I believe, after that Ferrari incident on the debris. We've talked about Grosjean, we've touched on Russell and Williams. Kvyat P10, really good drive for him again, and Perez kind of doing what they do. Those two, they just pick up the points, don't they? But Max Verstappen, mate, as we've already touched on, won driver of the day. I think I'm going to put this to chat as well. I think this is a tough one. This is a real tough one. Who's your driver of the day, mate?
This is one of the hardest ones for so long. Sometimes it's difficult because there's no one. It was just a plain race. But I think even his drive up to the halfway point, I've got to give it to PG Tips. That was an awesome drive from him today. And even when it seemed like he'd lost that podium at the end, he kept going. I mean, obviously there's other obvious candidates that I'm sure you'll go through and chat will go through. But for me, that's the one that just edges it. But it's just edges it. They were so many good drives today.
I know you're still young, mate, and this might mean nothing to you. But you are starting to turn into Alan Partridge, you know.
Who's that?
Oh no, Dan, no, don't. Just with some PG Tips, spicy, the chili meister. Like, oh god, he's on one. Anyway, I'll read some of chat. Connor has gone with Sainz. The chat, of course, has gone crazy. I keep forgetting. With the end of the season, views go down quite a bit, so chat tends to be a little more calm. But I forgot we have quite a few on today. So completely CR says Sainz. Rhetorical Resources says Gasly. It was Gasly or Sainz, no way Verstappen, says Nathan. Let's go down a bit further. Josh says Gasly, Raymond Gasly, McGath says Sainz all day long for SXM82D. Evan chose Verstappen. Jack Harrison just watched Turkey 2010. Albon driver of the day. Gasly for suffering addict. KV5 Gasly or Sainz. Samar smooth operator. I'm not singing. I am not singing. Sean, great name and spelled correctly, says Carlos Sainz. Got down a bit further. Who else have we got? Oh my God. Smitten the Kitten in Mittens.
Wow.
I'm having that. Vettel. Max says Marco. A couple more. Jack says Gasly. Duck Dastardly says Kubica. That's the name I'm easily going to screw up one day. Annette can't choose. And David says Verstappen, Sainz and Gasly all deserve it, to be honest. It's a funny one, actually. If that podium finished Verstappen, Hamilton, Vettel, I'd give it to Verstappen because he did drive brilliantly and the way he fought Lewis Hamilton was fantastic. But I can't not give it to Pierre. I know he's looked into that, but again, he got himself in that position. He drove brilliantly all afternoon to end up best of the rest. He's capitalised on that look. It couldn't have gone to a nicer guy and somebody who has had such a crap season at times. I've got to give it to Gasly, but I mean, honourable mentions to Sainz. You've got to say Raikkonen and Giovinazzi as well. You have to say Verstappen. Grosjean, obviously, Dan, got to give him a shout.
Yeah,
just
correct.
To keep you happy because I'm not bashing him all the time. But even the likes of Daniel Kvyat, who ends up with a point, deserve a nod. And Daniel Ricciardo, who despite whacking into Kevin Magnussen and pitting a couple of times, still ends up 7th. Because there are a number of drivers on this grid, Raikkonen, Ricciardo and Perez, who just... They'll do something, I'll go, well, yeah, that's what they do. It sounds awful, but it's true. I've got to do. I will take a couple of comments from chat, but I've got to ask you this, Dan. Does that last 20 laps back up what we keep saying, that Brazil needs to be the final race of the season? Could you imagine going into the off-season after that? Versus what we're probably going to go into the off-season on the back of after Abu Dhabi. The hype would be insane all winter.
It would. And I think, especially going into this weekend, I feel it was a little bit dry. People were thinking, the season's over. But this has really kicked it into gear. And it's really just ignited my flame for Formula One. I think, you know what? I need more than one more. Please give me more than one more. But 12 months on, and I'm still saying the same thing. I got hate for it last time. I'll say it again. I don't dislike Abu Dhabi. It's not that bad. Please stop hating Abu Dhabi. We said this last year and it turned out to be all right. But yes, you're right. If this was the last race of the year, the winter would be a hell of a lot easier to deal with.
Abu Dhabi was a good race last year. It surprised us, but then so did Russia, and Canada was diabolical, wasn't it? And we were kind of like, what happened this year? But... I'm not a big fan of it. It looks stunning, don't get me wrong, absolutely beautiful. And the track layout should lend itself to good racing. We don't always get that, whereas Brazil, you know you're going to get something, even if it is just the last 20 laps. And I feel like, yeah, I mean, Abu Dhabi's odd. I'm never going to believe anything I read on Abu Dhabi again anyway, because last year, total random point, before I did my preview for the weekend, if people were around on the channel then remember, I got dead sarcastic in the preview about the weather, like, it's basically in the desert. It's going to be really hot and sunny until we get to the evening. There's no chance of rain. It bloody rained. I was like, you swines. But yeah, Abu Dhabi, it's not up there as my favourite. It is not my least favourite on the calendar, I must stress that, but it's down the bottom there. But if we can get good races like last year, or all right races... It's one of those like Australia where you come out and if it's been an all right race, you kind of go, that was good for Abu Dhabi. It's like the Australian Grand Prix this year was good for the Australian Grand Prix, but if you put it alongside Austria, it was crap. But, you know, it was good for that, what you expect. So, race of the year? Or do you think Germany, for its chaos, is still going to trump this?
Yeah, Germany more for me because I feel this one, although the second half was brilliant, the first half wasn't the best. So, yeah, Germany still for me. And I think that there's a couple of others I think I'd throw in the mix as well. But no, this was still right up there.
I mean, if you're looking for drama, chaos and action, then Germany right up there. If you're looking for racing, I'd put Austria above. If it was which was the best, just pure race of the season, I'd probably put Austria right up there, but for absolute madness, Germany trumps it. But this is a close second. This is a close. Certainly, those last few laps, absolutely fantastic. We'll take a couple of comments, Dan. Seeing as we're actually running somewhat to time today. Famous last words. 3 hours later, and Dan's going, mate, I need to go to bed. Leave me alone. Chainbear got a peach in bingo. Doesn't matter because I've already won. He's going to tell me off now. I'm not supposed to say things like that. Anyway, people talk about the French Grand Prix. I don't talk about the French Grand Prix. It didn't happen. That was just an awful nightmare. Davis says, Germany was chaos the whole race. Brazil was more drama, but only in the closing stages. If the whole race was like the final something of the race, it would be just as good as Hockenheim. Yeah, I feel so sorry for K-Mag. He flies all over the world, gets his hopes up after qualify, but then the car just stops working. That's from Jonas. I felt a bit for K-Mag today, just for Haas in general, to be honest. Jack says Germany is still the favourite for him of the year. Let's not talk about France again. I'm not doing it. Germany was better, says Sam the Ginger. That's his name. I'm not attacking him. Abu Dhabi is worse than Monaco. God. I mean, let's face it, Monaco's only on the calendar because of history.
Yeah.
And because of the sponsors around it and all the money that comes with it. It's not there for the racing. We know that. Silverstone was a great race as well. Lots of pure racing, says Flying Eddie. Absolutely. Yes, thank you, Sajith. Another one pointing out Silverstone. Thank you for your contribution as well. Massively appreciate that. But yeah, Silverstone was a very good race. Austria was just epic, though. I love Austria.
Yeah, it's good.
But was that because of that was another race where we sat around waiting for decisions for 6 weeks, wasn't it? It was absolutely insane.
Yeah, it
John
was a bit stressful.
John T, the Brummies in chat, says weird things can happen in Abu Dhabi. Last year was a great race, remember? It was a good race. Good for Abu Dhabi. Monza was pure drama. A1 Ring is a nice track too. What to do with Gasly, lol. Is a good, what to do with Gasly. Can't do it in a Red Bull, but can do it in a Toro Rosso apparently, which is absolutely brilliant. So yeah, I'll keep an eye on your comments while we're just finishing off. But yeah, I'm if you could sum up that race, mate, in just a few words, what would you go with? I love putting you on the spot because I can hear your brain ticking from here.
Thank you. It's not over till it's over. That's what I'll go with.
I like that.
Thank you.
Sorry, I was listening, but Johnson just distracted me. Just post on Twitter, new game, show the result of the race to someone who hasn't seen it, then try and convince them it didn't rain. That's a good point, actually. Yeah, we got a team of the day. That's something I wanted to do last week. Actually, I don't know why. Or not last week before, but I've sort of because we always talk about driver of the day, but sometimes teams deliver. I mean, Red Bull were epic with some of their pit stops today. 1.9 for Verstappen, which could well have kept him the lead at that pit stop. So, would you give a nod to Alfa for 4th and 5th, as it turned out?
Yeah, I think I'd give it to Alfa, mainly because, like I say, 4th and 5th is brilliant, but when you look at their second half of the year, compared to the first, this was a real confidence booster for them. And for Giovinazzi as well, comfortably his best result in Formula One, a clean weekend. But yeah, Red Bull's pace, I don't think many of us would expect Verstappen to win by quite the margin he would have been able to do if there wasn't the safety cars. So either of those two, I think, team of the day.
I just have a quick scroll through Twitter and make sure that I've not missed something. Renault giving huge congratulations to McLaren and Carlos Sainz. That's got to sting a bit. The driver you let go and the team that you're supplying on the podium. Ouch. They're just not having a good year, are they, Renault? Everything seems to be kicking them while they're down as well, doesn't it? I do wonder how long they're going to stick around.
Yeah, and Gasly podium as well. That means Toro Rosso right in the mix. So it could get worse.
Yeah. We'll have a discussion about Renault in the winter, but I've got a horrible feeling that they might be on their way. I said it in the watch on, to be fair. Somebody will buy that team. It's the Enstone team. If I had the money, I'd buy it. But they're just so bloody good as a group. So someone will buy them, but I wouldn't be surprised to see Renault out the door. But I think we're going to leave it there. Just having a look if there's anybody in chat. Ferrari team of the day. Yes, they certainly spiced up the final few laps, didn't they? The last fight, yep. I'll read that one on Twitter later. Somebody's tweeted that one at me. But I think we'll leave it there, Dan. This is the kind of reaction I like, because we just sit and natter because there are things to talk about and we can have a laugh and we get a little bit fanboy-y over Pierre Gasly and Carlos Sainz. But really enjoyed that race. I'm sure you did as well, mate. It was epic, and I know it was all about strategy in that early on and a bit of a slow burner, but it was well worth the wait.
Yeah, thanks for having me, buddy. I really thought, I think me and Sean will struggle to really talk about anything at that halfway point. But crikey, we were really given a treat at the end. So, mate, I've really enjoyed talking about this one. Thank you, buddy.
I mean, if it had been rubbish, we could have talked about Formula E, couldn't we? Nobody minds that on this channel.
No,
so.
Definitely not.
Anyway, on that note, yes, thank you very much, Dan. And I'm sure I'll talk to you shortly, mate.
Cheers, man. Thanks for coming, chat. Bye.
Lovely. Thank you to Dan. Thank you to you guys as well. We've just got another super chat in super quickly from Aquila. Thank you very much again for your contribution. Team of the day, Honda. Scuderia Rosso winning a drag race to the line against a Merc. Can't wait for next season. Absolutely. That's another good point. I think we've been set up quite nicely for next year. This race has certainly got me excited for that one. But I can't actually believe I'm going to say this. That is it for the Brazilian Grand Prix. And we are now just one race left in 2019. Where has this season gone? That's all I'm saying for the next 2 weeks is, where has this season gone? It has flown by since Austria. It doesn't seem 5 minutes since we're all kicking off after Canada about Sebastian Vettel's penalty. It's been insane, but it's been a great race again. Really, really enjoyed that one. Great weekend. I will be back either, because I've been a bit this weekend, not too well, so I am going to say that I will be back either tomorrow or Tuesday with the debrief. Just depends how I'm feeling in the morning after all of this. So tomorrow or Tuesday for the debrief. There'll be a second video up this week on the channel. I'm not sure about a third one though, because later this week, of course, if you are interested in Formula E, the new season kicks off and we will be covering that over on the Formula E channel. Link to that in the description. So again, if you are interested in Formula E, then do go and subscribe to that channel if you are interested in doing that as well. But yes, somebody in chat there, Samara saying one more to go. Cheers, Sean. Thank you very much, mate. One more race to go. Just Abu Dhabi. I hope it holds out. Don't forget you can follow me over on social media. All of the links you need for that, as always, are in the description down below. But as ever, thank you for watching. I've been Sean. This has been the F1 Word. And until next time, goodbye.